Alrighty. Good afternoon and welcome to Moneyline MMA coverage of UFC 309. Jon Jones fighting Stipe Miocic to defend his heavyweight belt for the first time. It's been a while since Jon Jones has fought, and it's been even longer since Stipe has fought. And they will clash heads Saturday night at the MSG, I believe. Madison Square Garden. Fight card at all normal times with Hurley prelims starting at 5 Central, main card at 9. And some exciting fights on this card. Super exciting fights. But before we get too deep into things, we're going to discuss our picks from last Saturday. This was UFC Vegas 100. Big event for all of the UFC fans, considering the obviously the venue of the Apex is kind of saving MMA during the pandemic. And on top of that, Jose coming in with some real heat. Jose's 5-weight, Denise Gomez hitting, my 5-weight, Charlie Radke hitting, and also Jose agreed on Radke, so that was one of the locks of the week. Charlie Radke getting the job done in the first round. I was jumping up and down in my room watching that fight. It was amazing. Charlie Radke's a beast, and he's still yet to use his wrestling, yet to bring out one of the things he's even really still good at. And who knows who will fight next, but great to see him get that win easy. And, of course, Carlos Prates, another guy that Jose and I agreed on. You know, really good card overall for us here. Of course, sadly, there were a couple cancellations. The co-main event, Miles Johns and Cody Garbrandt, got canceled. Garbrandt apparently got injured. And there were some other fights that were canceled also. Nicholas Dalby and Zaleski. My one-weight fight was canceled. So the only real loss Jose and I took was Gerald Meerschaert. And I have to say, I think we were onto something slightly. The Ritter really gritted that one out and ended up getting, on the books, it'll be a submission win, but it was in the 3rd round, if I'm not mistaken. And, I know for sure that Gerald Meerschaert was really grinding it out with him. And, I just got to say, man, I'm not trying to diss one championship or whatever, but, he was their, double champ or whatever. And he comes over to the UFC and, really had to grind it out against Gerald Meerschaert. That was a close, tough, gritty fight. And, yeah, he ends up locking it in. But the Ritter, after he gets the submission, laid out on the canvas, he was so gassed he couldn't get up. He was like, it was geez, man, you're not cut out for the top end of this division by any. Imagine him against Khamzat. It would be laughable. So, that's the scouting on Rainier de Ritter. He's probably going to get somebody that can box, and they might coast him up the rankings by giving him people that are easier to wrestle with. But he has no chance at beating a guy like Khamzat or even really Drekus, if you ask me. So he has a very short ceiling in this division. But yeah, that was about it for UFC Vegas 100. We're going to get into things for UFC 309, pay-per-view of November. In my opinion, undisputed GOAT returning in Jon Jones. And what's interesting is that the 12-6 elbow is now legal, and the quote-unquote one on his record regarding a 12-6 elbow, it's very interesting how this sport changes. And Jon Jones, I'm thinking, may want to get Stipe in a spot. That's part of what I like to, we'll get into it when we get to Jon Jones, but I do feel like he's going to want to use that to his advantage. But just as a reminder for anyone new here, we make 5 picks on any given card. Currently 12 scheduled fights for UFC 309. And we weigh them in order of confidence, with 5-weight being the most confident pick and 1-weight being the least confident. And we'll always go in order from 5-weight to 1-weight. So, of course, 5-weight is our lock of the week. And we make these picks individually. And then right before the show, we just tell each other what the weights are so we know what order to go in. Because, as I said, we go with our locks of the week first and then move down the weights from there. And discuss, of course, any agreements, disagreements, so on and so forth. So we'll start with my lock of the week, my 5-weight of UFC 309. I'm excited for this one. And my 5-weight is going to keep us in the main event. I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I almost did. It's all right though because we're going to discuss how Jon Jones is going to dismantle Stipe Miocic on Saturday night. He's currently listed as a minus 700 favorite on FanDuel. Stipe is plus 440. Now, before I say, everything I'm about to say, I'm not really going to be looking at this in terms of like a spot to win good money. You know, as a minus 700 favorite, you're not going to be able to do that. Um, Honestly, Stipe is one of the GOATs, if not the GOAT of specifically the heavyweight division. And we can't just discount and downgrade him because he hasn't fought in 3 years. Like, I still think he's going to have a lot of power. I still think he's going to be a formidable enough opponent standing up. And I really do think Jon Jones is going to have to wrestle and go for a submission unless he's willing to take some damage to win this fight. You know, I think he's definitely got more technicality than Stipe Miocic, but I would still argue, Stipe's power is still going to be there, if you ask me. From what I see online and what I've heard around, is that Stipe is really, really preparing for this fight seriously. Now, why wouldn't he, right? Any professional would, but I don't know. I really do think we're going to see a Stipe that is as ready as possible, like kind of like Glover Teixeira, right? And Glover was a dog, man. You weren't putting him out. And I get, I would say that Jon Jones is the similar, like, he's got some knockout power, but like Jon Jones is not like that one swing, like overhand knock you out kind of guy. And I don't think he's gonna just swing. I don't think he's knocking out Stipe is what I'm saying. I think he goes for a wrestling game, and Stipe has some wrestling game of his own. Stipe isn't completely inept on the ground, but there's no question that Jon Jones poses way more of a submission threat. And honestly, I think Jon Jones is going to do that. I think Jon Jones, as I kind of briefed before I gave my weight here, is that I think he's going to go to the ground and utilize the 12-6 elbow at some point in this fight. I think he's going to make it a point. If it doesn't come to him, it doesn't come to him. I'm not saying he's going to force it, but I really see this fight having an aspect on the ground kind of heavily, and that's going to be due to Jon Jones, and I think it's going to benefit him. I think he throws up attempts to finish Stipe, drains him out slowly. I don't honestly think it's a first-round finish. I could be wrong about that. He finished Ciryl Gane like easy. I don't think it's going to be that quick for Stipe. I think Stipe is too smart and knows what to expect out of Jon Jones. But I do think this doesn't last 5 minutes either. I think this is somewhere between rounds 2 and 3. Jon Jones gets the job done, maybe even round 4. But I do think wrestling-wise, Jon Jones is going to drain Stipe's gas, drain his batteries, and win this fight with technicalities and eventually submit him. Jose, any thoughts, or what do you think?
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you. I have Jon Jones on this. I have him as my throughweight because this is going to be one of the best, if not the best, fighter that Jon Jones will has yet to fight. At least resume wise, I would say, because he is also the most legit heavyweight that Jon Jones has fought. Because Ciryl Gane was one thing, but Jon Jones pretty much exposed him. Like, we were all looking forward to him having more of a kickboxing fight. Like, we were expecting to see more on the feet. But Jon Jones pretty much just did what Kamza would do and just went straight for the takedown and submission. And I think, if he wanted to, he could possibly do that to Stipe to some degree. Stipe does have the wrestling experience and is bigger and thicker. And as you mentioned, he's been taking this very serious. We haven't seen him in over 3 years, almost 4 now. And so it has been some time. He's 42 years old. But I still think that he's going to bring with him, he's going to carry on a lot of knowledge of just, the vet experience that he has. And but that being said, Jon Jones is also 5 years younger than him, Jon Jones being 37. I feel like that 5-year age gap is probably more noticeable between 37 and 42 than it is 27 and 32. I think I think that we'll definitely probably see a little more of a decline than what we saw Stipe. And of course, the last time we saw him back in 2021 against Francis, we saw him get knocked down the second round. And I'm going with Jon Jones heavily just because I think that he's going to be more diverse as a heavyweight. Again, Stipe is going to be bigger, stronger, and Stipe has has great boxing, a great boxing IQ, but I think John Jones has a better overall MMA IQ. Stipe has Golden Gloves level boxing, and he's definitely gonna tear at the body and at the head and switch it up back and forth. But I think what John Jones will do in return is he's going to offer more diverse strikes. He's going to be throwing more kicks, knees, elbows. I think that's what he's going to do against Stipe. And I do think John Jones will be the first one to get a takedown in this fight, but I don't know if it'll be easy. I definitely think Stipe will give him a big challenge in taking him down. But at the end, I think John Jones is going to be the more complete, well-rounded fighter in this one, and be able to finish. I do think he'll be able to finish Stipe, because Stipe, again, like I do think he'll be finished just because we haven't really seen Stipe win. The most impressive win I think Stipe has, obviously, he's fought DC, but was when he first decoded Francis Ngannou and beat him 5 rounds unanimously, and then we saw him get KO'd by Daniel Cormier, and then he beat Daniel Cormier twice until he rematched Francis. So he hasn't really fought anyone other than Daniel and Francis since 2018, and it's been a while. He's just fought the same two guys, and before that, everyone that he was finishing was already kind of older out their way of the UFC, like Junior Dos Santos, Alistair Overeem, Fabricio Verdum, Andre Arlovski, Mark Hunt. All were impressive names again. And at the time you look at it, 2015, 2016. Shortly after, their careers weren't long in the UFC. And I think the same thing could be with John Jones. Like, John Jones won't be in the UFC long, but he hasn't. John Jones has literally showed no signs of diminishing skills. So that being said, I do think John Jones. I just talked him up so much, like he could have been my 5-weight, probably should have, but I do like him a lot as a 3-weight. Because I do Stipe will be tough, being the most legit and best heavyweight. Right now Stipe is on paper the best heavyweight of all time. So I am giving him his due respects there. So that being said, John Jones 3-weight.
He does deserve respect, man. But everybody, I go to the gym. I know you go to the gym, and it's like I talk to some older heads there, and it's like, yeah, man, my time's passed, and you got to recognize that at some point. And maybe Stipe's quicker than I'm expecting him to be, but yeah, there's no doubt John Jones, like you said, that 5-year difference, upper 30s to 40s is where it really starts to decline fast in terms of speed and ability in a professional level. So I would just really expect John Jones to kind of clean this one in and out. There might be some small moments in which he gets rocked here and there, but it's not going to be like, oh my gosh, like he got rocked as like knocked down or almost KO'd. He'll just, he'll take a tough body shot. He'll take a tough shot on the chin, and he'll be fine in the end. Props to everything Stipe's done, but I just don't think it's his time anymore. That being said, that'll lock it up as a total 8 confidence points here for Moneyline MMA, my 5-weight pick on John Jones, Jose's 3-weight pick, and we'll move on to Jose's 5-weight.
Yes, so for my 5-weight, this is the middleweight bout between Eric Anders and the former middleweight champ, Chris Weidman. Right now, Chris Weidman, he is a betting underdog at plus 122, while Eric Anders is a big betting favorite at minus 156. For this one, I am going with your boy, Eric Anders. And reason is just because, kind of similar to what we just talked about in the last one too. Like, even though both of these guys have been in the UFC for a while, both are up there in their upper 30s and 40s. I think Eric Anders still has a little more left in the tank for what he's going to leave in the UFC. I think Chris Weidman's already kind of said and done all that, and I'm almost surprised he's not already retired. Especially, if I were him, I would have retired after that Uriah Hall fight. And since then, he hasn't really been active, obviously because his leg snapped. But since then, he goes on to lose unanimously to Brad Tavares. If he didn't retire from Uriah Hall, losing to Brad Tavares should have been more than enough to retire. I feel like that would have been securing, a retirement. But he does come back and got a win over Bruno Silva earlier this year. Really impressive, throwing him back in the win column. But then also, Bruno Silva is also right now on a 4-fight losing streak. And his only win was Brad Tavares, and he lost twice before that. That win to Brad Tavares doesn't really say much again as well. So that being said, I think Chris Weidman essentially like is done. Not much left for him to give. While Eric Anders does have a win over Jamie Pickett, but he is 2-1 in his last three. He's not been as active either. He's only been fighting like once a year in the last couple of years. So now this will be a second fight. So not as active. So this is a good fight actually for both. But I'm definitely going with Eric Anders on this one. Eric Anders, he out of his career, out of his 16 wins, he has 9 via KO and slash TKO. And Chris Weidman, he's already just shown that he has no chin. Eric Anders, out of his 8 losses, he's only been knocked out once, submitted once, and most of his losses come by decision. Obviously, 6 he's lost by decision. While Chris Weidman, again, he's shown that he has no chin. Out of his 7 losses, he does have 6 KO slash TKOs. Granted, that one TKO was a leg injury, but we have seen him get put out by out to sleep, actually knocked out by Dominic Reyes, Jacare Souza, Gegard Mousasi, Yoel Romero, Luke Rockhold. He's shown time and time again he has no chin, and actually 3 of those were back to back. Luke Rockhold, Yoel Romero, and Gegard Mousasi. They all knocked him out back to back to back, and those were all years apart too. That being said, Chris Weidman has no chin, and it seems like his bones too just aren't, they're definitely aging if they're snapping. I think your boy, again, he has the KO power, so I think he's gonna get the job done. He's either gonna win unanimously or knock out Chris Weidman, is the way I see it. So I do have Eric Anders, your boy, as my 4-weight. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
I left this one alone, man. I really left it alone because I still have some respect for Chris Weidman. I get what you're saying. I think it's a bit much to say he has no chin. Absolutely, he has not got knocked out. I get what you're saying a few times, maybe a few times too many, but I mean he's been in there with some tougher opponents like Brad Tavares and Bruno Silva, and he didn't get finished by those guys. To have no chin, I feel like you should really get finished against a guy like Bruno Silva. I don't know. I mean, Bruno Silva's not ridiculous, but he's got 20 KO wins on his belt. So that's the kind of guy I would expect to KO Chris Weidman, and at least he stuck through and got the win. So it's more of a respect for the veteran thing for me. I left this one off my card, and honestly, I don't think I can make a pick either way.
For sure, man. Yeah. That being said, yeah, I have not much to say. Yeah, I feel strong. Your boy is my 4-weight.
Sounds good, dude. So that's your 4-weight. Did we cover your 5-weight? I don't think we covered your 5-weight.
Yo, I'm so sorry. Yo, I just skipped straight to my 4-weight.
Yeah.
So that's my 4-weight. Okay, so my 5-weight is kind of an obvious one too, though. I'm gonna just jump on it. Is Bo Nickel?
Hell yeah. Okay.
I honestly, that's what John Jones ended up being my 3-weight. Was just because I felt that good about Eric Anders. And then
Okay.
But my 5-weight, my true 5. So apologies for that. Eric Anders is my 4-weight. So the fight that I feel even stronger than John Jones and Eric Anders, the strongest one, my 5-weight, is Bo Nickel versus Craig Jones. And right now, Bo Nickel, he is a betting favorite. He is a huge betting favorite at -1,000, while Paul Craig is a +560 underdog. And this one, yeah, I got Bo Nickel as my 5-weight. I just ultimately think he's gonna out wrestle, ground and pound, and I don't know if he'll be able to submit Paul Craig. Obviously, Paul Craig has great submission skills. He likes to go to his back. He feels comfortable there. But I think Bo Nickel, and I think that's why Bo Nickel will beat him, because Paul Craig is gonna let himself go to his back. But I think Bo Nickel will be relentless with the pressure and will just just pretty much squish and like smash Paul Craig and really give Paul Craig no room at all to work any of his jujitsu. So I think that's ultimately going to be the story of this fight. Is going to be Bo Nickel is going to, um, I think, use his strength and out grapple Paul Craig, and get rack up the ground control and smash game on the ground and look for a submission. I don't think he'll force it. He'll look for a submission when it presents itself. Which again, since it's Paul Craig, may not happen. So I think if it will be Bo Nickel via the unanimous decision. But who knows? We actually just saw Gerald Meerschaert get submitted by a newcomer in the UFC. So this could actually that's actually I still do feel confident that Bo Nickel will win via unanimous decision, or then if not, submission. If he finishes the fight, it will be submission. So against Paul Craig, that's the best way to put it. I feel so good about Bo Nickel. He's my 5 weight. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
Yeah, I'm with you. 4 weight on Bo Nickel for me. It was really just to me 4 and 5 weight are pretty interchangeable. John Jones and Bo Nickel to me pretty much similar confidence levels. I leaned at John Jones slightly just because to me he's the GOAT and he knows exactly what he needs to do going in this fight and really so does Bo Nickel. I think Bo Nickel doesn't really need to change any of his game plan for what he's done against any fighter. And like you said, I think a big problem for Paul Craig is that he might be okay with falling to his back, and that's going to be bad. Like Bo Nickel will actually rain down power and strikes and not just rely on getting a submission. And I don't think Paul Craig's going to be able to get Bo Nickel in a compromised position on the ground. I think in scramble situations, I like Bo Nickel's speed. I think Bo Nickel will very much so win at least 3 of the 4 scramble situations that might occur. And with all that said, I think it's pretty clear that Bo Nickel, being a minus 1,000 favorite, I think he was like minus 700 yesterday or on Saturday or a couple days ago. But right now he's at minus 1,000, and there's no value to be found there. It's to the point where I wouldn't even really want to put him on any parlay or anything because it's not going to add much value at all at minus 1,000. But no doubt about it, Bo Nickel's going to get the job done here and continue his rise. The UFC's clearly taking him a little slower. At this point with some of the wins that Bo Nickel's got, not that it's been insane, but he's been able to finish all of his opponents pretty easily. And there's still the UFC is still kind of like we'll take you slow and we'll take you easy here. We're not gonna leave you fighting anybody too crazy. Paul Craig is pretty good, but he's still not really that good. So I think that's smart for the UFC though. Kind of let him slowly blossom into the fighter that he wants to be instead of force him to fight someone really good right now. But that said, Bo Nickel, easy pick. That'll give us a total of 9 confidence points on Bo Nickel. That is Jose's 5 weight and my 4 weight. And with that said, we can jump down to my 3 weight of Saturday afternoon, which is going to be a preliminary fight and actually a heavyweight bout. I usually don't like to touch too many heavyweight bouts, and here I am touching 2 of them on the same card. Well, John Jones is an exception too for heavyweight because that's what I always say. Like, I don't bet heavyweight fights unless it's John Jones. But in all reality, I might also break that rule in this situation here because I have my 3 weight on Marcin Tybura. And he is fighting a guy in Jonathan Deniz that was supposed to fight Derek Lewis and then had to find a new opponent after something happened with Derek Lewis, and they had to take that fight off the card. It was one of the many fights that ended up getting canceled on the card, and now Jonathan Deniz found himself on the prelims of a pay-per-view, so good for him at least getting another fight scheduled. But here he is as a UFC newcomer, still facing his toughest challenge, if you ask me, in Marcin Tybura. And oh my goodness, is this a style change? Going from a guy like Derek Lewis to Marcin Tybura, style change of the century. Marcin Tybura is going to pepper with shots. He does land more than he absorbs. He lands 3.57 and absorbs 3.34 strikes per minute. So he's landing a little more than he's taking, and that's all because he's just trying to set up takedowns. He's not going to land with extreme power or anything like that. He's just going to kind of pepper you, push you to the cage, and work you into the clinch and try and take you down and suffocate you from there. He was able to submit Taito Ivasa in his most recent win, but he did get submitted by another pretty well-adjusted wrestler in Sergey Spivak. So that's a tough loss to take, and Spivak would definitely clean up Deniz as well if they fought. So This isn't too much of a knock on Tybura at all. And I think from what I saw at Denise, he looked good against Carl Williams, but in the third round, Carl Williams gets hit and he's kind of getting beat up, and then he lands a couple of takedowns on Denise and ends up getting 2.5 minutes of control time. And in my opinion, that when Jonathan Denise was on the ground and on his back, he looked pathetic. He looked like useless, and maybe because it was in the third round and he was tired, so it's harder to get up. But like he looked like a fish out of water, man. He didn't have a clue at what to do. He was like, oh, hopefully I won the first 2 rounds so I can get the decision win, and he ended up getting the decision win, which is probably correct. But in the end, Marcin Tybura is too much of a veteran. He's too savvy to come in here and not take down Jonathan Denise and drown him out by a decision with wrestling game. Jonathan Denise has really never been tested in terms of his takedown defense. So we can sit here and say, oh, he has a 70% takedown defense, but he has not been tested. Marcin Tybura will take down Denise, and he will win the rounds in which he lands takedowns. To me, that's 2 out of 3, and he gets the win. Jose, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so for this one, I did not actually rank it. This one was a tough one just because, like you mentioned, it's the heavyweights, and as Denise, this was a rescheduled. Well, it was a new fight, as you mentioned. He was supposed to fight Derek Lewis, and it major style change. Tybura is gonna definitely throw obviously more strikes per minute than Derek Lewis will. So Janelle Denise is already gonna have to be prepared to have a more diverse striker in front of him, not just someone that's gonna be throwing power punches. So it is quite the style change. For me, I really have no say, but I do like the Tybora one though, because just he's a lot more experienced than Denise, and it is a style change. So I think Tybura is gonna offer a little something more diversive. So I like the Tybora pick, but I have no ranking in this one.
Sounds good. My official pick will be Tybura as a 3 weight, and I'll pepper in there that he is a minus 125 favorite. Denise is a minus 102 dog. So that's a very close line there. And what I really like is Tybura by points or submission. I like him by either one. I think both of those are really live here. So take Tybura by points or submission to get that line to even or plus money for you. And with that said, we'll move on to Jose's 3 weight.
Yes. So
Two
for
weight, 2 weight actually.
my 2-weight, my 3-weight being John Jones. My 2-weight, for my 2-weight, this is another one that's going to be on the prelims. It's actually the main event of the prelims, and this is the bantamweight bout between Jonathan Martinez and Marcus McKee. Right now, Jonathan Martinez is a betting underdog at plus 114, while McGee is the betting favorite at minus 146. This one, is probably gonna be my dog of the week. I think it will be is John. It's going to be Jonathan Martinez. I'm going with the underdog in this one. Reason being is that Jonathan Martinez. He has wins over good guys. Like he's beaten Cub Swanson, Saeed Nurmagomedov, Adrian Yanez last year, and he only went to go on to lose earlier this year to Jose Aldo via unanimous. But Jose Aldo, he just lost split decision to Mario Batista, but he's been, Jose Aldo for his age, he's only 38 years old. Being a former featherweight king and interim champ as well, he's still giving it a lot and giving a lot of these younger guys a run for their money. He's just been putting on the pressure. Jonathan Martinez being 30. Jose Aldo, win or lose, he's been putting up good fights against the younger dudes. So no shame in there, and he's a legend still. Jose Aldo still moves like he's young. But that being said, that I don't take anything away. I think that was just nothing but really good experience for Jonathan Martinez to be matched up against someone like Jose Aldo, and to go unanimous decision with them. And with Marcus McKee, he's got good wins. He's on a tear, but I haven't seen too much of him yet in the UFC compared to Jonathan Martinez. And some of the names that he's beaten, they just don't pop out to me the same way that the ones with Jonathan Martinez does. So that being said, there's Gaston Bolanos, who actually just got a win this past weekend. But that being said, not too much for me to say there in terms of who they fought. So it really does surprise me to see even Jonathan Martinez as the underdog. So I see just a lot of value with him being the underdog and just the experience as well. He's 19-5, while McGee is 9-1. Um, not only has Jonathan Martinez seen better fighters in the UFC, but he just overall has more fight experience. The one thing I will say is Jonathan Martinez does get clipped quite a bit, though. He does get hit. He has absorbed 3.87 significant strikes per minute. So I do see potential issues there for Martinez when it comes to McGee, because McGee, out of his 9 wins, 8 of them come via KO/TKO. So if Jonathan Martinez doesn't just have better striking defense, and McGee could find a home on the chin and possibly get make it lights out for Jonathan Martinez. So that's why Jonathan Martinez is my 2-weight, though, because McGee is a finisher. He's got that power, and Martinez is known, yeah, to just get touched up a bit on the feet as well. So I'm going with Jonathan Martinez, but he is my 2-weight. Nick, do you have any thoughts on this fight?
No official pick, mainly because I would side with you if I had to though on Martinez. I love the value, especially as a dog. No doubt about it, is that great value as a dog. Marcus McGee, he looks good, but his experience pales in comparison to what Jonathan Martinez has gone through. And his recent loss against Jose Aldo is a tough loss. I think Jose Aldo won his most recent fight, and Jose Aldo still looks like a beast. So that's a tough loss to take. I honestly, this is by far the biggest test Marcus McGee is gonna see, and that's why I would end up siding with it, because I tend to doubt a guy before I trust a guy, unless I've seen something special. And yeah, he's been getting finishes, so you love to see that for McGee. He's been finishing his opponents, getting performances of the night, but I'm gonna need to see him do it against a guy like Jonathan Martinez before I officially jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. So that being said, yeah, you have no rank in this one, but you like the Jonathan Martinez pick. Yeah, I like him a lot. He's my dog of the week and my 2-weight.
Sounds good. That'll bring us to one of the more exciting fights of Saturday night. I think obviously the main event is what we're all really looking forward to. Just so we could see John Jones out there for maybe his last time. I'm not personally convinced. I think John Jones is gonna kind of pull I don't know, at least for now. I don't think we're gonna see John Jones do the whole take off his gloves and retire in front of the octagon like the night of the fight kind of thing. I think the best we get out of John Jones is a maybe. We'll see, and we'll see. In terms of if it ends up being his last night fighting in front of our eyes. But that being said, the other biggest fight of this card, by far the other most exciting fight that has potential to be a big boom, is the co-main event, Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. And it's kind of the long-awaited return of Michael Chandler after he spent so much time waiting to fight Conor McGregor. And Oliveira coming off a loss against Sarukian, who's now pretty much destined to be the next title challenger. And that was a split decision loss in which he really had Sarukian in a choke at the end of that fight, and arguably won the end of the fight. So it's one of those spots where it kind of leads to why Oliveira is my 2-weight pick. And honestly, it kind of speaks to the confidence I have in a lot of my picks on this board. Of course, John Jones being a 5-weight is kind of obvious, and really Nickel with the alternating 4 and 5-weight is the 2 most confident picks. And it just shows how much confidence I have in Tybura too to get the job done, because this is still a really confident 2-weight, man. Oliveira is gonna have his spots where he probably gets rocked a little bit. Chandler has been looking great. His workout videos, he looks jacked and he looks ready to go. He is very well prepared for this fight. But I just don't think Michael Chandler, in the end, has what it's going to take to beat Charles Oliveira. When I see how well Charles can work against Arman, not only on the ground but on the feet, I guess maybe even on the feet, though, Arman did kind of piece him up. If you look at volume-wise specifically, Arman was piecing him up. But in terms of on the ground, Charles Oliveira looked good too, and he stays in the fight, right? Even if Charles Oliveira gets rocked and it's ooh, is he done for? Is he done for? He's never done for until the referee has called the fight. You know what I'm saying? So for that reason, I really like Oliveira here. I think Chandler's really only good chance is landing a big shot to KO Oliveira, and it's possible, but I think it's very unlikely. I think Oliveira, way more likely aspect here is Oliveira working him and getting him to the ground and either finishing the fight or winning rounds on the ground that way. And I think he's a minus 265 favorite right now. Chandler's plus 200 dogs. So Oliveira is obviously a big favorite for a reason. I expect him to get the job done, but it would be really hard to predict like specifically KO or specifically submission here because I think the fight could turn in a lot of different weird directions. But overall, I really trust Oliveira here. He might get rocked once or twice, but I trust him as a guy who could come back strong. And we just haven't seen enough out of Chandler. You know, he's obviously dominated Tony Ferguson, but we've seen what Tony Ferguson has done. Poirier, he looked good against for one round. That's it. You know, if all we're getting is one round out of Chandler, that's not going to be good enough. So, what do you think, Jose?
Yeah, so I'm definitely excited for this fight. This one I'm going with Charles Oliveira. The reason is that yeah, he's just like you say, he's been a lot more active than Michael Chandler, and we already seen Charles Oliveira beat Michael Chandler before. We already seen Charles Oliveira get put under pressure and almost get finished himself by Michael Chandler and be able to weather the storm and come back and get that submission finish over Michael Chandler. So I think because of that, you know, he's already proven himself. He became the champ when he beat Michael Chandler. Dubronx, he's shown that, you know, yeah, he's got great submission game. But he also has hands as well. Being able to knock out Beneil Dariush in June of last year as well, and then this year going losing split decision to Arman Sarukian, who Arman's probably going to be the next one in line to challenge Islam, or if not very soon. So that being said, Charles, he's proven, he's battle tested, and he's won many times. And Michael Chandler, he's extremely battle tested, but he hasn't come on top many times. Going battles with Dustin Poirier, losing that one. He beat Tony Ferguson, but Tony Ferguson's also like, I don't even know, like was like on a 8 fight losing streak. And then Justin Gaethje, he went toe to toe with him, but lost that. And that being said, yeah, like, and then he just sat out so long waiting for that McGregor fight that just never ended up happening. During that time, DuBronx fought a couple times. Like, yeah, this one, I like Charles Oliveira a lot. He is my one weight just because, again, both got, like, Michael Chandler is a wild card, though he is a madman. He's like kind of like Justin Gaethje, and then he's gonna be, Michael Chandler. It gets to a point where he does kind of all he sees is red, and he doesn't care if he's getting clipped in the face, and he's just gonna be coming at you trying to bulldoze you, which could help him or could also cost him the fight. So that being said, I like Charles Oliveira. He is my one weight for this one.
Okay. Sounds good. So we do agree on Oliveira, and I think both of us are really confident in all these picks here. I mean, obviously, we selected these 5 bets and picks in general from the list of the 11 or 12 that are listed for UFC 309. So there's already some base level of confidence you have in making that pick, but 2 weight for sure. Looking good out of me for Oliveira, and 1 weight out of Jose for Oliveira. And if I'm not mistaken, that just brings us to one last pick, one last fight to discuss for Saturday afternoon, which is my 1 weight. We've gone through all other odds right now, all other weights besides my 1 weight. And I did throw in the female fight of the main event, main card, excuse me, from this fight from UFC 309. That's Karine Silva versus Viviane Araújo. Karine Silva being a minus 295, so pretty much 3-1 favorite against Araújo. And this is another fight in which I really don't see any value whatsoever. This is a pick in which I'm picking Karine to win, and I want to be able to come back, on Monday and be like, look at me, Jose, I went 5-0, right? But in that case, that doesn't mean I'm getting insane value for these picks. Betting is a little different story, right? We could talk about how to make money in a betting aspect in a different way, but Karine Silva here is my pick. Although that's with the caveat that I think Viviane Araújo is a stud. Simple as that. And I think this is just not going to be easy. Of course, Karine and Viviane coming off of Karine, I should say, coming off of a win, and Viviane coming off of some losses. Natalia Silva, Amanda Ribas, Alexa Grasso. Those are top level fighters. So that's not much to scoff at all, right? Losing to those top end fighters. It's kind of like Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler's one of the best at the lightweight division. He just loses to the top end fighters. And it's really a question of Charles Oliveira being a top fighter. Of course he is. And that's why we're picking Oliveira to win. But going back to this fight, I think Karine Silva is just more of a dog. I think Karine Silva has to dog this one out for sure. This is not going to be easy. It's one of those spots where I really am tempted to say over 2.5 rounds. But at the same time, Silva really finishes a lot of her opponents up until she fought Ariane De Silva most recently. She finished all her opponents in the UFC. You know she's going for that finish. But the funny part about it is Viviane Araújo has only had one fight in her entire UFC career go before the decision and before it went to the judges, and it still went to the third round, and it was her UFC debut back in 2019. So it's almost a clash of differences there, where Karine Silva is pushing, and Araújo is in it for the long run. So my main concern here, and really my only concern against Silva, is gassing out and looking bad in the third round and losing the third round, and therefore maybe losing a decision if the second round was close. But in any case, I would definitely say, like, if you could take round wins, I would say Silva wins the first round for sure, and we go from there. And overall, with the round going into the second round, of course I'm taking the fighter that won the first round, Karine Silva. I think she's better overall. She just needs to avoid gassing out, and she'll get this done. Any thoughts, Jose?
Yes, so obviously me having all my ranks, I did not put weight on this fight, but I do like your pick with Karine Silva. This one was just a tough one for me. I just think that I've seen a little more of Vivian, but she's already up there, older. I agree with. I think Karine Silva, the first round is definitely going to be hers for the taking. And even though Vivian, she's barely been finished. Karine Silva could, like half of her wins are via KO, state KO. She wins in the first round. I mean, if she dominates the first round, she can dominate so much that she can even win it in the first round. 3 out of her last 4 fights were ended in the first round. So if she doesn't finish her, then she at least definitely won that round for sure. Yeah, I like Karine Silva a lot. I don't have a weight on this one.
Fair enough, man. So there's no requirement there to pick to make a side there, and we already have our 5 weights there. As a quick recap here before we sign off here at Moneyline MMA, my 5 weight John Jones, my 4 weight Oliveira, sorry, obviously not Oliveira, Bo Nickel, and that is the best bet, of course. Moneyline lock of the week is going to be the 9 confidence picks points between Bo Nickel, between our 5 and 4 weight. And John Jones is up there, but he only has 8 total confidence points, just because that's Jose's 3 weight and my 5 weight. Of course, you might as well just, if you want to make a parlay between Bo Nickel and John Jones, go ahead, but it's going to be like minus like 500, which still isn't value if you ask me, and still is not worth it. But from there, we do also agree on Charles Oliveira. Actually, no disagreements on the night. We just had a few fights that we both didn't pick, in terms of Eric taking Eric Anders as his 4 weight, and I did not have an official pick on that. And I'm taking Marcin Tybura as my 3 weight, in which Jose didn't have an official pick. Underdog of the week, definitely Jonathan Martinez, it looks like, with some great value at plus 100. And I also, Marcin Tybura isn't quite an underdog, but at minus 125, that's the lowest odds favorite you're going to get, that I'm very confident in. So go ahead and parlay Tybura plus Jonathan Martinez if you want a little bit of a somewhat risky but high-end payoff parlay compared to what you're going to get from some of these other fights. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Let us know down below who you'll be picking, who you'll be siding with, and if you have any disagreements. And as always, we'll be back next weekend. The UFC continues the heat, and so will we. So ride with us, and we'll reconfer on these picks next Monday.